start the recording here. So with that being said, AP is a trademark from the College Board, which we are not affiliated with and we are not endorsed by them. A little bit about us. We are a completely volunteer-based organization that has put a lot of hours into making lectures such as the one you're seeing here. And if you are interested in some of the resources that we are able to provide, or if you want to apply and make a difference in seeing some of the stuff that we do, highly encourage you to check us out and see some of the things that we do. Hopefully you can all see my screen while you are here. So if you want to type something in the chat, go for it. And if not, let me know, and I could probably try and fix it on my end as much as I can. As for Unit 4, Unit 4 actually is, for most of you, from what I've heard, is actually going to be one of the more difficult units. Unit 4 is focusing more on like monopolies and how imperfect competition, where you're going to have a lot more lines than in Unit 3, because you've got one line on top of another, and you also have the same MRMC, and as well as those cost curves. So Unit 4 does get a lot trickier, and really through this lecture, hopefully I'm able to help you, and as well as provide some resources and as well as practice questions to help you master Unit 4, because Unit 4 is actually, I believe, is going to be your the most weighted unit actually, where you're actually going to get a lot of content as well. And if you are at it, be sure to fill out the lecture feedback survey, whether during or after the lecture, to hopefully get a sense of how your thoughts on today's lectures are. So whether you like it or you want to see something being done differently, that is the place for you to fill it out, and to do so completely anonymously. So highly encourage you to do so and be honest about the feedback that you do provide as well. So at some point, be sure to fill it out when you get the chance to. And 17 in the audience isn't too bad. 18 now, okay. So yeah. In regards to the imperfect market structure, there are going to be three kinds of markets that are classified as imperfect competition. We've talked about this imperfect competition the other day. I believe it was last Friday, and then we're going to be focusing on this structure, Unit 4. We're going to focus on these three. As for monopolistic competition, think of these as like your as like fast food restaurants. So like you have a lot of firms, right? What across the block you could find McDonald's, and right next to it Wendy's and maybe Subway, and all these different restaurants. All of them, they have a lot of very similar products, and you could easily, if you can't go to McDonald's, you could easily go to Wendy's, or if you really don't like both of them, you're more than welcome to go to Chick-fil-A as well. If you're not able to see my screen at this time, try refreshing your page. I'll try sending the try refreshing as well. And I am unmuted, so maybe try checking the volume on your end. I believe I am talking. Hopefully you are able to hear me. Okay, perfect. I think most of you. As for previous chapters, yes, I did a couple more a few weeks back. Yeah, but those are recordings that I'm going to try and get up sometime this week, because my drive is really full, so I might just end up making another Gmail account just to upload all this stuff. Because 15 gigs isn't that much, unfortunately. And when you're recording lectures left, right, and center, it really isn't that much, unfortunately. So, yeah. As for your oligopolies, these are just going to be your companies with like very similar to monopolies, except it's kind of just a monopoly with multiple players inside of it. And to better understand a oligopoly, it's just lots of people coming together to be a monopoly. So a lot of airline prices, for example, take a look at a lot of the air transport carriers in the States. All of them really price in a very strategic way, so that you kind of have to pay more. As for a monopoly, I really love to use the example of College Board, and I think we can all agree on the College Board being a monopoly. I don't know if your teacher uses the example of it, but I sure do love using the example, because the College Board is the only market in the only firm in the entire market. In this instance, the firm is the industry, where they pretty much control it, which is exactly why you are going to be paying hundreds of dollars per AP exam. Multiply by the multiple APs that you're going to take, just because you are grown up with a value that you need AP. So Yeah, so I think we've fallen a bit into the trap of the College Board. I think this is a very cruel image that we're using to describe them as it, which is also why we're not endorsed by them. And I think we're happy without the endorsement because we want to give free resources and not charge you hundreds of dollars on that as well. As for competition, a lot of competitions that they would still advertise in the hopes to get more sales. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in monopolistic competition as well. As for your imperfect competition model, Mr. Darb, as we've learned in Unit 3, is the same line. Mr. Darb used to be a straight line for marginal revenue. Both your demand, your average revenue, also your price, now no longer exists and has broken down into two lines. The reason why it has broken into two lines is because as you want to sell more and more goods, you have to lower your price, and therefore your marginal revenue goes down below the demand curve. Again, it is also downsloping, and we can again plot this out on this graph here, on this table as well. As for elasticity, your price becomes inelastic as your total revenue becomes to decrease. Remembering the rule of elasticity again, as your price goes up, it at some point it's going to your total revenue is going to decrease. So in the instance of inelastic, if your price goes up, your revenue goes up, your demand is going to be inelastic, and vice versa. And then here's just again another way to remember things. Your increased price and total revenue go in different directions, and whereas if it's inelastic, they go in the same direction as you can see here. As for a monopoly, which is going to be the bulk of the unit, is going to be your dominant market structure, where only one producer is going to be able to control the market. Again, here, as they are a single seller, there's only one of them in the market, meaning that if you were to buy something, you could only go to them. So a really good example, actually, again, I've mentioned this a couple times already, the College Board. Where else do you get university credit in high school? Really, there's not really any other place and that is able to do it, and for such thing. The slides are going to be accessible sometime after the lecture. As for marginal revenue is below the demand as price decreases and the revenue generated gets smaller and smaller. Not necessarily because as a monopoly here, the main assumption is that you cannot price discriminate, meaning that you have to charge everybody the same price. If one person is willing to pay $10, however, two people are willing to pay $9, you will have to lower it to $9 to get more and more sales. And you have to keep going to a point where you believe you're going to make the most money, therefore the most profit as well, where you have to lower it to a certain point where everybody has to pay that same amount of money no matter what. And this should be the best price that works best for the consumer, where they're able to maximize profit. As again, for monopoly, they have a unique good where you cannot go to anyone else to get the same good as well. And again, because they are the single seller and there's no alternative, they are therefore the price maker, so they can charge whatever they want. So if you wanna pay $10 or $20, realistically, as the monopoly, they charge however much they want. So if that's a price, whether you like it or not, I'm sorry, the monopoly, it always goes their way as the price maker as well. Again, because as for monopolies, they exist because of barriers to entry. So a lot of barriers to entry really include, for example, cannot entering because, for example, there are a lot of high startup costs, government regulations as another, or even geographic barriers as well. Economies of scale is another. We also have graphs for those ones as well. Price discrimination can occur, however, a lot of times they have to do so under a certain criteria. It can only, I believe, it can only happen when you can definitely separate the market, and you can't prevent, and consumers can't really abuse the system where they're going to try and force themselves into paying the lower price. So there has to be a way for the consumer at large to fully hold into account and enforce the price that you want to separate for different customers. Again, your monopoly is going to be at the same profit maximizing point. This is always going to be your profit maximizing point. Whether you are imperfect or imperfect, it's going to be MR is equal to MC. You're going to have to remember this one and always this one. Again, very similar to calculating the total total revenue very same way. It's again your quantity, price times quantity up to here, and this would be the area that you make. Again, your total profit, cost and profits. This is also going to be a very similar way in terms of where you're going to be able to make it. Your total cost would, in this instance, would just be here. Therefore, your profit would be your profit is going to be here, and then your total cost is going to be everything from this point and below from your total cost curves. Your total cost curve again is going to be very similar in how you calculate it. You're going to calculate this price times the quantity, whereas your profit is going to be finding the total revenue and subtracting it from the total cost. Again, unfortunately, because these are going to be imperfect competition, you're going to have deadweight loss, meaning that your market here is going to be inefficient, being that you're going to lose some economic benefit for both either the consumer or the producer as a direct result. Here, however, monopolies can have economic profits in the long run, and because they are able to do so, they can make this money and keep this money. And we learned in Unit 3 actually that that economic profit gets neutralized and goes down to zero as a result. Do we think if you guys want to type out in the chat, do we think that other firms can come in and join to make this to earn this economic profit, ultimately leading this into zero economic profit? Chups, I see you said no. Do you have a justification? Catherine, absolutely. They cannot enter as much as they want to. There are high barriers to entry, making it very difficult to enter in the first place, therefore resulting in economic profit for the only firm in the market. Again, not all monopolies are bad. I think we framed the idea of monopolies being bad for much of this lecture now, that that monopolies love charging higher prices. However, we should also take note that not all monopolies are bad, because economies of scale allows a single producer to do better than having multiple smaller firms. And the best example of this would be like public utilities, public works, or public transportation. All of these would be much more efficient under one firm that controls and operates all of these services, as opposed to multiple small services doing the same job. Economies of scale again reminds us back to a couple units back, where economies of scale, as you produce more, your cost curves will ultimately decrease, resulting in lower average total cost for the consumer, where consumers ultimately are able to pay less and have a bit more savings. So, which is also why your utility bills, there's only going to be one power company and not a lot of small firms trying to offer or sell power in that instance as well. As for the marginal cost going downward sloping as well, your marginal cost, it could go both ways actually. So depending on the situation, they could mention that because your cost is decreasing as well, because it is decreasing, because your average total cost is decreasing, that your marginal cost could either decrease or remain the same. And the reason why I cannot actually your marginal cost cannot go up is because that does not reflect economies of scale. Going up means diseconomies of scale, because your costs are just ballooning. And as for the cost to stay stagnant, it also allows them to stay within the average range, where if it is going below average, therefore it is not going to increase. Now, again, we have consumer surplus still in the market, which is the economic benefit that remains for both the consumers and producers. So that's how much money they would have paid or have received. Now, would we be able to find consumer and producer surplus on this graph? Again, very hint to this being very similar to Unit 2 and 3. Again, going to be a very similar triangle as to finding consumer and producer surplus. So feel free to type it out. And for those of you who have joined, if you haven't already, please be sure to take a moment to fill out our anonymous and very short feedback survey on today's lecture. So if you have opinions on what you want to see, or what you want to see differently, or what more you want to see covered, be sure to fill this out whenever you have the time to do so. As for the stream, try refreshing your page. Usually that's the fix that works for most people to be able to see it. So try giving it a refresh. Yes, this would be what your consumer surplus looks like. Again, I mentioned it, very similar to Unit 2. Producer surplus, very similar to Unit 2 and 3 again. And then your deadweight loss would just be here in the axis triangle that is not utilized by either party, representing your market inefficiency. Now here your unregulated monopoly would here produce at quantity 1, because that is where the maximizing profit point is, where MR is equal to MC. However, as the monopoly, where they want to make as much money as possible, because this is the dark curve, this is also the demand, which is also equal to the price. Therefore, they will be charging at this price. They will be producing at Q1 and P3. A characteristic of monopolies is that they like to underproduce and overcharge, trying to create the goal of trying to create artificial scarcity, where they're trying to lower the supply and therefore being able to raise the price, which is what makes the prices artificially high, and therefore much higher than in perfect competition, as we see. Your socially optimal allocatively efficient output is going to be out here and here. This is going to be allocatively efficient where it meets the supply and demand of both the consumers and producers, and we can also think of the marginal cost curve as the supply curve when it starts going up here for the supplier showcasing here. If it was producing at the allocatively efficient point, then this would be your consumer surplus, and then down here vice versa would be your producer surplus as a result. This would then be your most efficient point. However, monopolies, again, they love to make money, and I'm sure you all love to make money as well. And then here, your quantity here would be fair returns, which would, the fair return rate, where you have absolutely zero economic profit, where at Q3, at the price of P1, this would be where government regulation would be most effective. And as for the government to place a price ceiling, the government should regulate this monopoly by placing it at a socially optimal level to placing it at P2. This will make the price go up here, where they're able to where producers are not able to charge any more here. As a result of this price ceiling, monopolists are not able to charge at P3 as a result of this. As for enjoying this class, I think it is an interesting class. However, the graphs really do kind of drive me nuts at times. So, yeah. What are your thoughts? As for your quantity, then, it would have, as a result of the ceiling, it would increase from Q1 and Q2, and your consumer surplus would increase, where you would no longer have this area of deadweight loss. And the reason why the government should impose it here is because this is the most efficient point, where you're able to meet as much consumer surplus and have producer surplus, where both of these are equivocally at a maximum. And then again, you could also think of this as your equilibrium price, as the price that would be the most allocatively efficient, where consumers get what they want, producers get what they want as well, at terms that would work best for both parties. Now we will get into a little bit more of price discrimination, which is kind of the price strategy where different consumers want to pay different prices for the same good or service, which this would ultimately help be more beneficial for the producer rather than the consumer, where it is able to eliminate consumer surplus by charging them extra money for different customers, extra money for extra services, where they eliminate that consumer surplus and turn that into extra profit, where they make more money. Again, they are profit maximizing, and they will do whatever they can to make money. However, price discrimination is only possible when they have these two conditions, where they have a market that they can separate. So, for example, they're selling at different age groups. So if you're selling from 0 to 3 years old, 4 to 12 years old, 13 to 18, 19 and up, that is where you're able to separate it based on age. And you should also, for this, you have to be able to enforce it, where you're not where customers can't just lie about things to get it for cheaper, because again, as consumers, they would do that because they want to make money as well. As for price discrimination, they are not actually producing at the allocatively efficient point. Again, because they are a monopolist and they are seeking to make as much profit, they will again continue producing at Q1, which is where we see where this line, by drawing it out, their production here only extends to this level. The reason why they would not produce here is because this is again not the profit maximizing point where they would give up at some point of profit. This would be perfect price discrimination, where where again price discrimination refers to as much money, where they can charge as much money as they want to different customers. Again, think of price discrimination and as well as the level of production as entirely separate, where you should produce at again continue producing at profit maximizing level. As for your monopolistic competition, this is again very similar to both a monopoly and as well as your perfect competition, where it again shares characteristics of both market structures. Here in monopolistic competition, you have many sellers. You're going to have differentiated products, but you're going to have very similar products where all of these have some degree of pricing controls, because they sell, well, very similar products. They have something unique about this product, whereas this product also has something unique about themselves. Here in monopolistic competition, they have zero long-run economic profit because there are low barriers to entry and exiting. So if you are making economic profit, other firms will try and hop in, therefore neutralizing the economic profit you make. And this goes vice versa with economic losses as well. Again, low barriers to entry result in zero economic profit, where this is pretty straightforward. You can easily leave or enter the firm as well. As for monopolistic competition and monopolies, they share the same graph here, where they use the same methods again to calculate your total revenue and profit. Here they're again not allocatively efficient because the demand is not equal to the marginal cost curve, and as well as your demand, and it's also not productively efficient because it is not at the demand is equal to lowest average total cost. Again, reminder, for productive efficiency, that is where firms are able to produce things at the lowest average total cost, therefore referring to the name of productively efficient, lowering costs and maximizing it by utilizing economies of scale. Here again, you have deadweight lost again due to underproduction and lost potential benefit for both the consumer and producer, where this only focuses more so on the producer as well. As there is economic profit, how would we shift it from this, assuming that this curve is the short run, how would we shift it to the long run, and what curves should we shift in what direction? Feel free to try it out in the chat. ATC curve would shift. Yep. And yes, it does shift directly to perfect competition in the same way as well. Here, your curves will be shifting either left or right depending on the situation. However, in this situation, I believe it shifted left, resulting in your zero economic profit. Zero economic profit in the instance just means where your average total cost intersects your demand curve at the MR is equal to MC point, where as well you would ultimately have excess capacity when your price is not at the minimum average total cost, where there is more supply than demand in the market. Now, I think we're going to get into oligopoly, one of the rather trickier ones in this unit as well. Here you're going to have to start making a lot more tables where your oligopolies are going to be a market structure, again, very similar to monopoly with multiple players in the market that are working together. So think of multiple firms acting as one. You're going to have a lot of small firms trying to control the market, where your producer is going to try and work to control all the resources and set prices as they are price makers. You're going to have a few sellers, again, as I've mentioned, trying to control the entire market. So here the example I gave you are some of the Canadian telecom companies actually here in Canada, we pay some of the highest internet costs in the world because we pretty much have a monopoly, which is just an oligopoly between a few of the main carriers. So if any of you are in Canada, you don't need to tell me how expensive the cost of living here is, and as well as the cost of Wi-Fi or internet coverage as well. It is pretty expensive, I'll tell you that. Oh dear, gas prices in Canada are a living hell. Yes, I think they're like 2 something in my area. And as for oligopolies, again, they continue to have interdependence where sellers work together to control the market. Very straightforward, where they connect together. As for collusion and cartels, collusion is just work. Collusion and cartels, they're both of them cartels are kind of the idea that I think most of you are thinking it more so as in cartel as in drug cartel, but that not necessarily where cartels more so work to work together to collude, where collusion is just the idea of setting prices in a way that that reflects your interests. Where collusion is actually the agreement to group together to agree to a price, whereas your cartel is just these groups of firms as a whole. As for them, again, price makers, they have price leaderships where they have the collusion, which is also the idea to set the prices up to set up absurdly high prices as well. And again, that's also the idea of high gas prices that you've previously mentioned. And again, barriers to entry. You're going to have new firms trying to enter, but they cannot enter because of, for example, the high barriers to entry, such as high startup costs, or access to raw materials. So, for example, if you're trying to start up a gas or a oil mining company, you're probably not going to have access to start it because your main barrier of entry, aside from cost, is going to be actually trying to get access and control these raw materials in the first place. Because if you cannot even control them in the first place, you probably won't have access to gather them and use them as a result. As for your oligopoly and game theories here, yes, oligopolies are cartels, which aren't monopolies. However, you can think of them very similar to monopolies because they act in a very similar way. Because what I like to think of it and how I think you should think of it are that they are monopolies with multiple players. So just highlight the part with multiple players. Here again, as I've mentioned with collusion, your firms will also have in this market structure, they have an incentive to work together to collude to form cartels, which collusion is just agreeing to form prices which are intentionally set high, which is very illegal in a lot of places. A lot of companies have actually gotten in some legal trouble as a result of that. I think there have been a few lawsuits for I don't remember which company was it, but yeah. And the purpose again is to make money. Again, remember that all the firms are profit maximizing, where they want to make as much money as they can wherever they can. And in order to do this, all of these firms have to work together for interdependence. And this goes against Unit 3 in perfect competition, where firms are competing against each other, where in this case here they're working with each other to make as much money as they can and therefore maximize profit as a result. And in order for them to collude to form a cartel, they have to agree to a set price. So, for example, what are all these firms, all of them, no matter what, going to charge for the same service or very similar service as well? All of these should have very similar products, and as well as your demand curves as well. However, all these firms also need a way to fully enforce the pricing strategies, where there must be consequences for violating these terms of agreements where they agree to such prices, because if they were all to agree together to make increased profits together, there's also just as equal of an incentive for them to cheat out on the deal and not end up following with the agreement of high price collusion and earn money elsewhere, which ultimately would lead to the devolution and breaking down of the cartel, which would lower prices and turn it towards a much more competitive market, therefore lowering prices and increasing output or quantity in this case. And then the best example of oligopolies is that they are they are working together to set prices, and the example that I'll set out here are airline prices. So take a look at a lot of flights from Los Angeles to New York. We can kind of take a look at very similar. They sell pretty much the same service, and the demand for all of these is going to be going in the same way. And the reason why the demand here is going to be very similar in this instance is that if you're flying to New York, or if you're trying to get there, you're going to have to book a flight, and therefore you're going to probably going to be booking from one of these major carriers as well. And do we note? And if anyone wants to mention anything about some of the prices here, feel free to mention anything if these prices look something similar. If they see anything in relations or in regard to the pricing. Delta and JetBlue, absolutely, they are going to be very similar. Yeah. As for CO2 emissions, I'm just genuinely curious. Does anyone look at this this as a deciding factor when they try and book a flight, or do they just look at the price? Because I'm a little bit unsure as to what it means by the what the purpose of the emissions be for. Absolutely no. I don't think anyone looks at it. I think all of us are looking at the price. No. Airlines would not be perfect competition, although their prices are going to be very same, and they're going to have the same product. Yes, that's true. But the reason why they are not going to be in perfect competition is because that being an airline has first and foremost high barriers to entry here. So because they have high barriers to entry, like it's not easy to buy planes and buy multiple planes and have access to doing so. And there are also a lot of government regulations preventing you from just starting an airline, flying wherever you want. Because in the instance of perfect competition, there could be a lot of airlines coming and going as a result of this as well. And then here with airlines as well, you will also have few sellers, because there are only a few airlines in the industry. I believe for you guys in the States, you're going to have American, United, Delta, and a couple more out there, but there's really not that much of a selection as a result, because you definitely meet these ones. And as for interdependence, you see those few airlines very well working together, and as well as because they're working together, and the example here, you see that all of these prices are very similar, and they're working together to strategically price it in a way that you have to pay at least $370 as a result, and that would probably be closer, or a lot closer to by 500 American, if you want to correct me on that, but very similar in terms of that pricing. Okay, the more painfully part of game theory here. So game theory is to kind of understand and evaluate the actions of different players in based on the choices that they make. I think a really good example of game theory is for those of you who play chess. It is kind of a much more critical thinking and a lot more strategic play, where you're trying to make decisions based off your opponent. So whether they make a good move or they make a very strategic blunder, the goal of it is to use these moves to ultimately modify your decisions to really try and win the game and make an outcome that works, that yields the best outcome for you. And when you keep making outcomes or keep modifying it and keep going in a way, you end up hopefully in a position of Nash equilibrium, where in a condition where you end up with a player that keeps increasing their payout, but they cannot get even more. So this would be the instant that they have maxed out on all their wins. They cannot get better outcomes than before. And this statement we would kind of more so verify when we get towards it later on. Furthermore, when it comes down to strategic gameplay, you're going to have to look at a lot of more of the gameplay here, where you're going to have to look at what the kinds of strategies that different players are going to be making. Yes, the lecture slides will be on 5.5 sometime after this lecture as well. I'll try and get through all of them in a week. I've got my AP seminar, IWA, to submit to the college board tonight, so I want to get that out first, and then hopefully I'll get this all up by tomorrow. So, but I'll try to do it. No promises, though. Just to double check, are you all able to hear me? Just give a confirmation in the chat, perchance. Okay, perfect. Okay, a few of you guys. The lecture slides you can find, as well as the recording, on the 5 Hive website and as well as the 5 Hive YouTube channel. We'll try and get them uploaded sometime this week. Yep, that's 5hive.org. I'll type it out in the chat for you as well. Here. As for your strategies, then you're going to end up with two main ones. You're going to have either you have one or you don't have one. And when you have one, that's when you have a dominant strategy where your best decision, no matter what, you don't look at what your opponent does. No matter what, you go for the same move. So if your opponent does A or plays B or C, you continue to play move X no matter what, because that is still the best outcome regardless of their decision. Whereas on no dominant strategy, you have no different move dependent on where your decision is dependent on your opponent's action. So for example, if your opponent plays A, you have to play X, whereas your opponent plays B, you have to play Y, and vice versa. And as a result, if they keep flipping moves, you also keep flipping moves. Whereas if you have a dominant strategy, you would not be flipping moves, and you'd be doing one thing with a clear direct purpose no matter what as a result. And to evaluate all of these strategies, actually, and to give an example of all of these, we have to determine each player's strategy with a payoff matrix, which is able to be made between two players. And a quick note from the CED, the exclusion note, is that you're not going to have a table where you're going to have more than two players and two actions. So 2 by 2 is the biggest that you're going to see as a result. Supposing with this, as an example then, supposing that two firms can either lower or increase their price, based on this table, we can find each firm's strategy from this here. So we can try finding it by looking at just firm 1. When firm 2, we can look at firm 1 first, and then we look at firm 2. So when firm 2 raises their price, we can look at it either saying, is firm 1 going to benefit or lower? We can look at 160 and 130 because these are the two corresponding values of firm 1. And here we can find that firm 1 is going to be at 160, therefore, as a result, because it's greater than 130. And we do the same with lowering the price, therefore 100. And now we can do the same for firm 2, where we block off firm, where we look at what firm 1 would do. So would firm 1 raise or lower? If firm 1 was to raise their price, should firm 2 raise or lower their price? And then we can again look at this by highlighting things based on firm 1 and firm 2's possible actions, where we highlight them in yellow. Now to find firm 2, we can look at the best response to either response, and based on this, we can also find what firm 2 would do. And if firm 1 was to raise their price, then we could also take a look at this based on this. If firm 2 was to raise their price, if we were to look at it, would it be beneficial for them to lower or raise their price? And because 260 is greater than 210, we would lower the price. And then for firm 1, when they lower the price, we look at 310 and 90. Therefore, 310 is substantially greater than 90 as a result. So therefore, these are going to be your 4 squares that are going to be covered as a result of this. And then based on this, do we think that firm 1? Let me know what you think if firm 1 has a dominant strategy, and if so, what is their strategy? So feel free to type that out in the chat. As for game theory within the oligopoly market, it really only applies to the oligopolistic markets as a result. As raising the firm 1 is the best outcome, we can conclude that firm 1's dominant strategy is to raise its price. So for those of you who said it, you are correct. And and this is because regardless of firm 2 action, we can simply see that that firm 1 should just raise their price no matter what. And how we can determine the dominant strategy here is that for firm 1 is that when they have a dominant strategy, we can see that their dominant strategy here, their best value is always on the same line. So it's either going to be up here, corresponding to raising its price, or both values are going to be down here, therefore corresponding telling it to lower its price. And based on this, we see that it should raise its price. And then this would also be vice versa, when if firm 2's dominant strategy is to lower its price, these values would be the highest values, and if it's to raise its price, these values would be the highest to for its price as a result. So, yes, absolutely, both firms can have a dominant strategy, but those outcomes are going to be a lot rarer. I've seen questions in relation to having two dominant strategies as well. As for that, with your Nash equilibrium, then that would usually be the outcome that yields the highest payout for both parties, no matter what. So that, and in terms of questions like that, the College Board is going to like to make it really obvious in terms of what the Nash equilibrium is going to be, where your Nash equilibrium will obviously be the highest value, no matter what, for both firm 1 and firm 2 on the same outcome as a result. So hopefully that does clarify. If there are any other questions, feel free to dump them in the chat, and I will also do my best to go through them as much as I can. Now turning back to firm 2, we can also do the same by highlighting here, highlighted in orange. When firm 1 raises or lowers its price, what's the best? What should firm 2's best response be? And here, does firm 2 have a dominant strategy, and if so, what is it? Feel free to dump that out. Yeah. Okay. Based on this table, then, firm 2 actually has no dominant strategy as a result of this. And then we can conclude, although this looks very wrong as Nash equilibrium, because this is the outcome for both firms when they do collude, where both of them are trying to make money as possible. Okay, now this is going to be one of the more interesting Venn diagrams. I found this a really interesting and also very helpful Venn diagram to keep a note of. So this Venn diagram highlights some of the similarities and some of the similarities between perfect competition, monopolistic competition, monopoly, and oligopoly, which are all going to be the different market structures that you're definitely going to be seeing on the exam, and you're definitely going to be quizzed on one way or another, whether that's through a game theory table, the payoff matrix, a graph regarding profit maximization or whatnot. All of these are going to be in one way or another going to be on the test. And what's really important is that you really need to understand. You're going to need to understand how these graphs work and what happens as a result of whether you're going to shift the graph left, right, or vice versa as a result. So that pretty much wraps up much of Unit 4. Unit 4 was pretty much you're going to be your monopolistic your imperfect competition structures, where you're definitely going to have a lot more market inefficiencies, deadweight loss in this instance, and as well as monopolies really loving to charge you more and producing less by producing artificial scarcity, and as well as a lot more barriers to entry and a lot of a lot less competition in this market structure as well. Here you can find a lot of these as well. And as well, to really wrap this lecture up, I do have a couple of sample questions that feel free to give it a try as well. I'll create a poll as well for this, and for the first question would be, which of the following would be true about a monopolistically competitive market in long run equilibrium? I'll create a poll real quick. There we go. I'll just launch the poll there. Yes, game theory and everything that you see within Unit 4, you're definitely going to see on the exam, whether that's in the multiple choice or on the free response question. I believe there was one for last year on the payoff matrix game theory last year. So I think it's going to be a lot less likely for it to happen this year, but that doesn't mean I'm saying that it's not going to happen or that it's unlikely to happen. That's just a something to consider as well. So I see most of you guys, or a lot of you have put down your votes. And then I'll go down to number 2 here. Based on the firm, what would be the best dominant? What would describe each firm's strategy based on this table? I'll just. Depending on how cooked you are, I would say, if you took micro in the summer and now you're reviewing. If you've not reviewed whatsoever throughout, I think you would be slightly cooked, but I think you've got a chance. So best of luck there as well. So. Feel free to vote on this poll and go for a vote. And to solve the strategy, you probably might want to start making markups on this and evaluating what each firm's best decision as a result should be based on their strategies. So based on what firm X does, we should also look at firm Y. If they raise their price, are they going bigger? Are they going high or low? And this is low. And if they go low, they go low as a result. And then I'll switch the color up for firm X if they were to go high or low, or sorry, for firm X if they were to go high, they should go low, and then here for low they should go low as a result. And then this actually goes right back to the situation where you have the dominant strategy here, where the strategy for firm Y is to go low, and then your strategy for X is to go also go low. Oops. Which would yield in your answer were for both of them to go low. Should be A. Now on to unit question 3, a little bit more tricky. Which would show an unregulated monopoly in of the effect of a price ceiling at P2, and this would be your price ceiling. So feel free to vote again. Okay. And then the answers are just here, so feel free to double check your answers as well. So hopefully you guys did pretty well on them, and I hopefully you guys did find today's review session helpful. And if you did, please be sure to fill out this short lecture survey if you have not already. And this is just a really short survey, and as well as anonymous if you'd like to if you choose not to leave your name. It would be really helpful to help me understand what you liked about today's lecture, what you want to see differently, what more units or different topics you want to cover. And if you are interested in seeing different subjects, be sure I can help you with finding, tailoring it to your learning needs to help you do well on the exam, which is just next week. So I'm wishing you all the best, and if you're able to quickly fill out the survey, please be sure to fill it out as well. As for cram session, there is going to be a cram session on the day of, and as well as there are also going to be a lot more other review sessions as well that will be happening. Both Unit 5 and 6 will be happening this week. I can quickly post the link out here in the chat for you all, so feel free to be sure to click interested if you have not already. So so you don't miss out, because usually you will get you usually do get pinged when these sessions start. So be sure to click yourself interested onto both of these sessions right here that I'm about to send. Yeah, as for the previous sessions, both of those sessions are gonna go up hopefully by the end of this week, because my drive has gotten really full. So I'm gonna have to start clearing stuff out in order to make room to have space to upload them to the lecture schedule, so you can all take a look at it. And again, if you haven't already, be sure to click yourself interested to both of these events, and as well as filling out the short lecture survey as if you haven't already. Again, that just wraps up today. Hopefully you found it helpful.